Hello, welcome back to the breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you're watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got a breaking news report coming out from Finland, and I've got more information to show you guys today that the Russians are massively increasing their military presence along the Finnish border and also expanding their military bases. This is something I have been telling you guys for a few weeks now. We've got some new satellite images like you see here on your screen. And this is something that we briefly went over this morning with our update video for the Russia-Ukraine war, but I want to go dive deeper into this and give you guys more details on this story. Take a look at your screen here. Russia is building up its military presence on the border with Finland. Russia is expanding its military infrastructure near the border with Finland in what NATO officials describe as the early stages of a long-term buildup, the New York Times reported Monday. So I'm going to show you guys this report today and give you some information here. As we've been hearing, the Russians have been expanding their military presence on the border with Finland. It makes you wonder, is Russia preparing to attack Finland at some point, or maybe the Baltic nations, maybe even Poland? Or do you guys think that this could possibly be a military buildup to attack the northern side of Ukraine? Because what we have been hearing also recently is the Russians could prepare a new offensive onto either the Sumy or Kharkiv regions, which is like northeastern Ukraine. So Finland is north of Ukraine, so possibly could it be due to that as well? Well, you guys can let me know what you think, but I'm going to show you the details here, and we'll go over this picture here in just a little bit on full screen for you guys. So this from UNN, we've got a report to show you today, and it says Russia is increasing its military presence on the border with Finland, according to the New York Times. The date is May 18th, 2025. It actually came out yesterday evening, but we're going to go over it here today. It says Russia is strengthening bases and building infrastructure near the border with Finland. Finnish military officials predict an increase in Russian troops after the war in Ukraine. So take a look at this. As according to the latest satellite images, Russian troops are strengthening bases and building military infrastructure near the Finnish border. This may indicate their strategy, which will be implemented after the war against Ukraine, writes UNN, with reference to the New York Times. Now, this is good news that we're hearing that maybe the war against Ukraine is going to end, but at the same time, why would Russia be building up their military bases on the border with Finland if this war is coming to an end? So does that indicate that Russia's afraid of NATO, that they're preparing to launch an attack onto NATO, maybe starting with Finland, or like I said, the Baltic nations or Poland? Many of these nations are now starting to mine their borders with anti-personnel mines and withdrawing from the Ottawa Treaty that allows them to do so to protect their citizens, as they could potentially see an invasion coming from Russia in the future. At least that's what NATO is worried about. So it says here under the details, the images confirmed by NATO representatives shows rows of new tents and warehouses where military equipment can be stored. Repairs to fighter shelters and constant construction activity at mostly unused and overgrown helicopter base have also been recorded. These steps appear to be early stages of a larger, longer-term expansion, and NATO officials say it is nothing like the buildup of troops along the border with Ukraine ahead of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. So they're saying it's nothing like the buildup of troops that we saw with Ukraine. So that's definitely a huge sign right there that Russia is preparing something if they're building up more massively than they were just against Ukraine at the start of the war. So that's insane news right there. Currently, the aggressor state, busy with the war in Ukraine, has very few troops along the border, and the Finns insist that none of this is a major threat, at least for now. But Finland is one of the NATO's newest members. It joined the alliance 2 years ago. These steps undoubtedly reflect Moscow's own perception of the threat. This border, 1,335 kilometers long, is now NATO's longest line of contact with Russia. Military analysts predict that this could become a hotspot, especially given that a significant part of it is located in the Arctic Circle, which is subject to disputes over ownership. American and Finnish troops recently conducted complex Arctic military exercises in the region, during which hundreds of soldiers ran through the forest and the Finns sped between the trees on skis. Russia was considered a likely enemy during these exercises. Finnish defense officials predict that if high-intensity phase of the war in Ukraine ends, one of the goals of the complex peace efforts unfolding in Turkey, Russia will deploy thousands of troops to the Finnish border. The Finns believe that they have about 5 years before Russia can build up its forces to a threatening level, but they are confident that it will happen and that the number of Russian troops facing them will triple. So here's a statement coming out. It says, "We will be talking about a much larger number of troops." This was said by Brigadier General Pekka Turunen, Director of Finnish Defense Intelligence. Finally, it says here, from Moscow's point of view, the Russians need to strengthen their defenses to protect themselves from NATO expansion, which has always been a sore point. The Baltic countries were the first members of the former Soviet Union to join NATO, bringing large sections of Russia's border closer to NATO's borders. Prospect of Ukraine, an even larger former Soviet republic, following suit was so threatening to Moscow that it became one of the causes of the most devastating land war in recent generations. So, something I want to note here also is just not too long ago, Russia was threatening Finland and also Sweden for recently joining the NATO alliance, stating that they never had an issue with Sweden or Finland before, but now that they have chosen to join NATO, they're basically target number one for the Russians. So now the fact that we're seeing this buildup of Russian forces on the border with Finland, this could possibly indicate that Russia's preparing to attack. So finally, just want to show you this last quote here. And it says, "The Russian armed forces have undergone a significant expansion after the war. The ground forces are likely to be larger than before 2022. Looking at the planned restructuring of military districts, it seems obvious that they will prioritize areas facing NATO," said Michael Kaufman, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace in Washington. Okay, so clearly NATO very concerned for Russia's buildup on the border with Finland. Now we're going to jump on over to X. I'm going to show you guys a couple things over here real quick. Okay, so from next to Russia digs trenches near NATO borders, Finland prepares for the worst. Moscow is rapidly building up its military presence near the Finnish border. Satellite images have revealed new bases, hangars for fighter jets, and helicopter pads in areas that were recently just overgrown fields and empty land. According to NATO and Finnish military sources, the Kremlin is preparing for a post-Ukraine reality. The redeployment of thousands of troops to the EU's borders may be the next step. Helsinki warns the number of Russian troops near its border could triple within the next 5 years, and judging by the current pace, the wait might not be long. So I showed you guys this picture earlier this morning during our update video for the Russia-Ukraine war, but wanted to share it with you again in case you guys haven't seen this. And it shows here tents at a Russian training base back in February 2025. Okay, this is near in Kamenka, close to the border of Finland and Russia. Might be a little hard to see because this picture isn't very huge, but we can clearly see here a buildup of Russian tents at a training base. And I've been showing you guys some pictures recently that there's lots of like fields like what you see here at many different military bases along the border of Russia and Finland. And we've been seeing expansion just over the last like 6 months in many of these areas at these Russian bases. Okay, so finally, I want to show you guys one last thing from Anton Gerashenko. Now, this is a story that came out on the 16th from Newsweek, but just in case you guys missed this, wanted to share this with you as well, talking about Russian military buildup. So from Anton Gerashenko, satellite imagery has revealed an increase in Russia's military activity near its border with Finland, signaling its intention to build up its troops by NATO's eastern flank. The pictures from Earth imaging company Planet Labs, PBC, show increased accommodation, aircraft deployment, and infrastructure construction at 4 military bases near Finland: Kamenka on the Karelian Isthmus, Petrozavodsk, and Severomorsk 2 and Olenia. So hopefully I'm pronouncing those right. Tried my best, guys. Comparing images taken at Kamenka on May 14th, 2022 and February 4th, 2025, over 130 military tents can be seen erected in the last 3 years at the site, which is located about 40 miles from the Finnish border. 3 storage halls, each capable of holding dozens of armored vehicles, have been built in Petrozavodsk, 110 miles from the border. 4 more facilities are under construction. Severomorsk 2 Air Base, 120 miles from the Finnish border, appears to be under renovation, according to Google Maps satellite imagery. Also, helicopters are stationed there. Activity was noted at Olenia Air Base, from where Russia flies strategic bombers used in attacks on Ukraine. Emil Kastelmi, Finnish military analyst from Finland-based OSINT, which is open source intelligence analyst Blackbird Group, said that if Russia sticks to its plans, tens of thousands of new soldiers could appear near the borders of Norway, Finland, and the Baltic countries in the coming years. So these are just some satellite images showing the expansion at these military bases, and many of these areas where they were just open fields, we're starting to see Russia continuing construction and expanding these bases. So these are just some pictures coming out. New barracks, and you can see a lot of military equipment just stored out here in the middle of these fields. And also right here, new barracks and bunkers being constructed. Excuse me. Also, we have some warehouses over here at several bases. Okay, so these are not obviously indicated at which air bases or military bases these are at. Per picture, but we can see some satellite images coming out here showing expansion at some of these bases. Okay, so here's one more photo coming out as well at another military base. We've got a lot of bunkers that have been constructed also. So this was actually a story that came out on Newsweek just about 3 or 4 days ago. And we've been hearing so much about this recently. Lots of mainstream news started to cover this now that Russia is preparing for a potential war with NATO. And we know NATO's doing the same thing right now. Okay, they're building up their forces as well, also expanding their defense production throughout Europe like crazy right now. Potentially going to be spending upwards of over 100 billion euros in the future just to protect Europe if we happen to see a war breakout between NATO and Russia in the future. So just wanted to give you guys another update here coming out from the New York Times today, indicating that Russia is still continuing the buildup of forces along the border with Finland. Okay, so let me know what you think about all these details down below. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.